My father gave my sister $500,000 for law school, but told me I was only good enough for a diner job. The world clapped for her perfect future while I served coffee in silence. I smiled at the counter, but inside I was breaking. When I asked why, he sneered, "Don't waste our money on dreams." My sister smirked. "Just be practical." That night, I cried into my apron, but made a silent vow. They thought they buried me in shame, yet they had just planted the seed of something they could never control. I grew up in a house where the walls were lined with smiling photographs. To anyone looking in from the outside, we were the perfect American family. My father, Richard, was a proud man who lived for appearances, always making sure that our lawn was trimmed, our cars were washed, and our family pictures looked impeccable on Facebook. He updated his profile religiously, uploading polished shots of himself beside my older sister, Sophia, the golden child he adored. Sophia was the lawyer in the making, the beacon of his pride. Her smile filled the frame, her hands clutching law books, captions proclaiming, "Our brilliant daughter on her way to greatness." What those glossy images never showed was me, Madeline, his second daughter, the one erased from the narrative. Sometimes I was cropped out entirely. Other times I was included, but only to highlight the contrast. One photo in particular stuck with me. Richard and Sophia standing side by side at her university campus. I was there too, just slightly in the background, carrying bags of food. The caption read, "Sophia, our shining star. Madeline, helping with the family diner where she belongs." He made sure the world knew exactly who mattered and who did not. I told myself it didn't bother me, but it did. Every time the notifications popped up, I felt another piece of myself shrink. My co-workers at the diner saw the posts and made awkward jokes. "Wow, your sister's a genius, huh?" they'd say, their voices dripping with pity when they looked at me. I laughed it off, but each laugh cost me something. One evening, after a long shift, I sat alone scrolling through Facebook. Richard had just posted a family picture from Sophia's mock trial competition. My sister stood tall in her sharp blazer, and I was at the edge of the photo, blurry, holding her coat. The comments rolled in, "Sophia looks amazing, she's going places." But then my eyes froze on one particular line. "Who's the other one? She looks like the maid." My breath caught in my chest. I reread the comment over and over as if it would change. My fingers trembled, my thumb hovering over the screen. I should have ignored it. But instead, I tapped the profile picture of the stranger who wrote it, studying their smug grin, memorizing their words like a scar burned into me. For the first time in my life, I saw myself through the eyes of the world, and it was devastating. At dinner that night, the table gleamed with polished silverware and perfectly arranged plates, as if we were posing for another photograph. Sophia sat across from me, glowing under the warm chandelier light. Richard cleared his throat, the way he always did before making an announcement. "I have wonderful news," he said, raising his glass of wine. "Sophia will be starting law school this fall, and of course I'll be covering her tuition and living expenses. $500,000 to ensure my eldest daughter has everything she needs." My fork clattered against my plate. $500,000. The number rang in my head like a cruel echo. For years I had begged him to help me pay for community college classes, just a fraction of that amount. And every time he refused. He said education was wasted on me. And now, with a smile stretching across his face, he boasted about pouring $500,000 into Sophia's future. I forced a smile, though my throat was tight. That's generous, Dad. He looked at me then, really looked, with that flat, dismissive gaze that had followed me all my life. Madeline, he said, his voice sharp as a blade, you should be realistic. You're good with people, good enough for the diner. That's your future. Don't waste our money on dreams. Sophia leaned back, swirling her wine, and smirked. Just be practical, Maddie. Not everyone is cut out for greatness. You do fine where you are. The room spun around me, though I kept my smile frozen in place. The roast chicken on my plate turned to ash in my mouth. I wanted to scream, to throw the glass across the table, to demand why my worth was measured so differently from hers. But instead, I lowered my eyes and nodded. That's fair, I whispered. No one noticed the way my hand curled into a fist under the tablecloth, nails digging deep into my palm until the skin burned. I pressed harder, feeling the sting, the only proof that I was still here, still alive. The chandelier light above flickered slightly, shadows trembling across my clenched fingers, as if the universe itself leaned closer, waiting. And in that silence, while Richard beamed at Sophia and toasted her future, a storm gathered quietly inside me. The weeks after that dinner blurred together like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. My father's words replayed in my head each time I walked into the diner, his voice hissing over the clatter of dishes and the smell of frying bacon. You're good enough for this, nothing more. Every morning, as I tied my apron, I felt the invisible weight of a dream stolen before it had a chance to live. I had once been promised a college fund. Richard told me when I was 16 that there was money saved for both of us. It was the only reason I held on through those grueling high school nights, studying after shifts, believing there was a chance. Now I realized that promise was nothing more than smoke. The money, like everything else, had been redirected to Sophia, the center of his universe. Sophia wasted no time flaunting it. She hosted live streams from her dorm, holding stacks of law books as if she'd conquered the world herself. The comments flooded in. So inspiring. Brains and beauty. She has it all. What none of them knew was that every brick of her future was bought and polished by Richard's checkbook. I watched one of her streams from the diner counter during a slow night, my phone propped against the napkin holder. The sound of her voice grated against me. Hard work pays off, she told her viewers with a self-satisfied smile. When one customer recognized me and said, "Hey, aren't you Sophia's sister, the lawyer?" I laughed bitterly. "No," I replied, "just the waitress." He looked embarrassed, muttering an apology, but his eyes said the truth. He pitied me. Then came the TikTok. Someone had filmed me balancing 3 plates on my arms at the diner, sweat on my brow, hair falling out of its tie. They overlaid the clip with one of Sophia's glossy live streams. The caption read, "One family, 2 outcomes, lawyer versus diner girl." It went viral. I scrolled through the comments late into the night. At least one daughter made the family proud. Imagine being the disappointment. My throat closed up. I slammed the phone down, tears stinging, and for a moment, rage pulsed through me. I deleted the app with shaking hands, promising myself I wouldn't look again. But just before the screen went dark, I saved the video. Something in me whispered that I'd need it someday. The poison didn't stop spreading there. One weekend, Sophia visited home, brimming with arrogance. "Madeline," she said sweetly, "let's film a little clip together. People love family content, and it'll be good for my image. Just smile and stand beside me." I resisted at first, but Richard intervened. "Do it for your sister, don't be difficult." So I stood next to Sophia, forcing a smile as she wrapped her arm around my shoulders and spoke into the camera. "See? Sisters through thick and thin. I couldn't have done it without her support." She kissed my cheek for the lens while her eyes glinted with mockery. The video exploded online. Sophia's followers gushed. What a supportive little sister. Sophia's family is so perfect. Meanwhile, my inbox filled with hate. Lazy freeloader. Of course she's jealous. Living off her sister's shine. I had handed her the perfect prop, and the world applauded her for it. That night, I locked myself in my room and collapsed on the bed, tears soaking my pillow. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, my eyes wandered to the dresser, where an old family photo sat in its frame. Richard, Sophia, my mother before she passed, and me, the illusion of togetherness captured in still life. I picked it up, tracing the glass over my mother's smile. Her hand rested gently on my shoulder in the picture, as if she knew I would need her even after she was gone. But when I turned the frame over, a slip of paper fell out. My breath hitched as I unfolded it. In Richard's handwriting, the words read, "Rachel's college fund, $200,000. Rachel. My name before I insisted on Madeline. The money had once been mine. My future had been earmarked, secured, and then stolen without a word. I stared at the faded ink until my vision blurred. A hot wave of betrayal surged through me, searing my chest, my arms, my throat. For years, I thought I was never good enough, that maybe I hadn't deserved the chance. But this was deliberate theft. My father had erased my path and handed it to Sophia as if I didn't exist. I clutched the paper until it crumpled in my fist, my tears falling onto it like acid drops. In that moment, the illusion of family shattered completely, and in the silence of my room, with the echoes of online jeers still haunting me, a new thought formed, sharp and electric. They think I'm nothing, but I will show them everything. The discovery of the crumpled note about my stolen college fund had lit a fire inside me, but the flames soon dimmed when another truth fell into my lap, one far darker than I expected. I was cleaning the diner office one evening, going through old files my father had left on the shared computer. Buried in a folder labelled tax documents was an email chain between Richard and a law professor. My heart pounded as I read line after line, offers of donations, subtle promises of favours, all in exchange for Sophia's grades being adjusted. My chest tightened and the room seemed to tilt. Sophia, the golden child, the flawless prodigy everyone admired, had never truly earned her success. Richard had bought it, just as he had bought her image, her future, her very identity. And worse, he had stolen mine to do it. I printed the emails, my hands trembling as the pages slid warm from the machine. Proof, undeniable proof. But as I stared at them, another thought gnawed at me. Even with evidence, who would believe me? The world adored Sophia. I was nothing but the bitter sister in a diner apron. The sting cut deeper when I reached out to the one person I thought I could trust, my oldest friend Claire. We had grown up together, two girls sneaking out to climb rooftops and share dreams about escaping our small town. If anyone would believe me, it would be her. We met at a coffee shop and I slid the papers across the table, whispering the truth. Claire skimmed them, her expression unreadable. Finally, she leaned back and sighed. "Maddie, you can't do this. Sophia is going places. She's the future of your family. You're just you. Don't ruin what she has. It'll only make you look pathetic." The words struck harder than any slap. I stared at her, searching for the friend who once promised me we'd conquer the world together. But she was gone, replaced by someone dazzled by Sophia's shine. I left the coffee shop numb, my printed pages clutched like a lifeline, but feeling emptier than ever. That night, I climbed onto the diner's rooftop, a place I had gone to since I was a teenager whenever the world felt too heavy. The neon sign buzzed faintly behind me, casting a pink glow over the asphalt parking lot. I pulled out my earbuds and pressed play on an old playlist, songs my mother used to sing along to in the kitchen. The familiar melody wrapped around me like a ghostly embrace, fragile but comforting. For a moment I closed my eyes, letting the music drown out the jeers of TikTok strangers and my father's cutting voice. I imagined her beside me, humming off-key, her hand squeezing mine, reminding me I was not invisible. The night air was cool, the stars sharp against the darkness. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe. Just breathe. Then a gust of wind tore through, knocking a bundle of old letters from the folder I had brought with me. They scattered across the rooftop, one landing near my foot. I picked it up, my pulse quickening as I recognized my mother's handwriting. The envelope was yellowed, edges frayed. My hands shook as I opened it. "Madeline," it read, "don't ever let anyone tell you that you are less than enough. You are stronger than they know. You are destined for more." The tears came fast, spilling onto the ink, smudging her words, but not erasing them. My mother had believed in me, even when no one else did. But belief was not enough to keep me from sinking. Over the following weeks, the weight of it all pressed down harder. The diner shifts felt longer, the gossip around town louder. Each time Sophia appeared online with her polished smile, my chest cracked a little more. I lay in bed at night staring at the ceiling, imagining what it would be like if I simply stopped existing. The thought didn't scare me, it tempted me. I pictured slipping away quietly, leaving behind the noise, the humiliation, the endless comparisons. No more diner, no more TikToks, no more Richard's voice declaring my worthlessness. Just silence, just peace. But then my mother's letter echoed in my head. "You are destined for more." The words clung to me in the darkness, pulling me back from the edge. One night, as I sat at my desk with swollen eyes and shaking hands, I whispered into the stillness, "If they want me broken, I'll rise. If they want me invisible, I'll shine so bright they'll have to look." I wiped my face, sat up straighter, and pulled my laptop toward me. My finger hovered over the trackpad, my breath uneven but my decision steady. With a deep inhale, I typed "online courses" into the search bar. When the page loaded, hundreds of possibilities appeared. Business management, culinary arts, marketing. My heart pounded as if I had stepped into another world, one where I wasn't confined to an apron and a smile. I clicked enroll. The confirmation screen glowed back at me. small and unassuming, yet it felt like the first brick in a new foundation. Enrolling in that online course felt like dropping a match into a dark room. For the first time in years, I had light, faint, but growing. I buried myself in lessons after long diner shifts, watching YouTube tutorials on restaurant management, scrolling Reddit threads where small business owners shared their victories and failures. Every scrap of knowledge became fuel, every new skill a brick in the wall I was building to shield myself from Richard's words. The diner, the very place my father dismissed as my prison, slowly revealed itself to me as something else entirely, a foundation. I knew the business inside and out, the menu, the regular customers, the quirks of the kitchen. What Richard saw as proof of my limitations, I began to see as a secret weapon. One Saturday morning, I served pancakes to a family of 4. Their youngest daughter took one bite and exclaimed, "This is the best pancake ever." Her mother smiled warmly at me, adding, "You have a gift, dear. You should be proud of this place." For a moment I froze, caught off guard by the sincerity in her voice. Then a smile crept across my face, small but real. It was the first genuine smile I had felt in weeks. The warmth lingered even after they left, as if the little girl's words had stitched a torn piece of me back together. But life never let me rest long. A few days later, a young man with bleached hair and a phone tripod walked into the diner. I recognized him immediately. Ethan, a food TikToker with millions of followers. He ordered the diner's classic burger, recorded every bite, and left without saying much. My stomach twisted with nerves as I imagined him trashing the place online. 2 days later, I saw the video. Ethan sat in his car holding up the half-wrapped burger. "Guys," he said, his eyes wide, "I think I found the most underrated diner in town. Don't let the outdated sign fool you. This is insane." He took another bite, groaning dramatically with approval. The video exploded, racking up millions of views. People in the comments were tagging friends, making plans to visit. My phone buzzed with notifications from strangers, praising the food, the atmosphere, even me. The same internet that once mocked me as diner girl was suddenly obsessed with the diner's charm. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was being seen. The diner's foot traffic doubled in a week. Exhausted but exhilarated, I wiped counters and rang up orders, barely keeping up with the rush. Each smile from a satisfied customer was another nail in the coffin of Richard's prophecy about me. But deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. I started documenting everything, taking notes about what worked, what didn't. In the evenings, I returned to the emails I had printed, the ones proving Richard had bought Sophia's grades. I stored them carefully, along with screenshots of Sophia's live streams and whispers from classmates who had seen her cut corners. Piece by piece, I built a file of truth, a silent arsenal. Meanwhile, I began sketching out a plan. If Richard and Sophia had stolen my chance at college, I would build an empire out of the scraps they mocked. I named it Heart and Soul, a brand that reflected the warmth of the diner and the grit in my chest. I designed a simple logo, launched a website, and began offering delivery through food apps. It was clumsy at first. Orders got mixed up, deliveries went wrong, but people kept coming back. Not just for the food, but for the story. I didn't hide my past. I leaned into it. The girl they called Diner Girl won blog headline read, is turning humiliation into triumph. My story spread across social media, and customers shared their experiences with pride. One night, as I sat in the office balancing receipts, an email popped up with a subject line that made my heart skip. Forbes Local Rising Stars nomination. My hands trembled as I read it. They wanted to feature me and the diner in their upcoming issue about entrepreneurs to watch. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the screen in disbelief. The walls seemed to hum with the weight of what this meant. Forbes, recognition on a scale I had never dared to imagine. And somewhere across town, I knew Richard's phone would be buzzing with the same notification. His forgotten daughter's name in the subject line, shining in a place Sophia's fake grades could never reach. 5 years passed like the turning of a page, each chapter written in sweat, sleepless nights, and relentless determination. Heart and Soul was no longer just a small diner with a faded neon sign. It had grown into a chain of 12 restaurants scattered across 3 states, each one buzzing with life and carrying the same warmth that had once been dismissed as trivial. I was no longer the invisible daughter cropped out of photographs. I was Madeline Hayes, CEO, and people said my name with respect. Sophia's story, however, was unravelling. Whispers had turned into headlines. The law firm she worked for conducted an internal audit, and the truth about her fraudulent grades and bought credentials came out. She was quietly dismissed at first, but the story leaked, as stories always do. Soon, news outlets that once praised her were dissecting her downfall. Golden Child, Hollow Crown, that was one headline. I clipped it and set it aside, not out of spite, but as a reminder of how fragile illusions are. Then came the call I had never expected to receive. Richard's voice, once booming with authority, was thin and desperate. "Maddie," he said, almost choking on my name, "We need to talk. Please. We need your help." For a moment, I considered hanging up, but curiosity and something deeper, perhaps closure, compelled me to agree. We arranged a meeting at the old family home. When I walked in, the living room felt smaller than I remembered. Richard sat hunched in an armchair, his eyes bloodshot. Sophia was beside him, her once perfect hair tangled, her face pale. They looked less like the powerful duo who had lorded over me for decades and more, like children lost in a storm. Richard stood, his voice trembling. "Maddie, I made mistakes. We thought we were doing what was best for the family, but everything is falling apart. The community, our friends, they've turned on us. Sophia can't find work. People whisper everywhere we go. Please, we need you." I sat down slowly, placing my laptop on the coffee table. My heart pounded, but my face remained calm. "You need me," I repeated softly, savouring the irony. Sophia leaned forward, her eyes wet. "Maddie, I know I was cruel. I said things I shouldn't have, but we're family. Can't we start over?" I clicked open a folder on my laptop and turned the screen toward them. Email chains filled the display, the same ones Richard had written years ago, to bribe professors, the same proof of Sophia's fraud. The colour drained from their faces as line after line appeared, their secrets laid bare under the cold glow of the screen. "Start over?" I asked quietly. "While you built your empire on lies and stole my future to do it?" Richard buried his face in his hands. Sophia stammered, reaching out as if to close the laptop. "Please don't show this to anyone. It will ruin us completely." "It already has," I said. My voice was steady, not cruel, but final. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by Richard's ragged sobs. The man who once told me I was good for nothing wept at my feet. And for the first time, I felt no need to fight back. I didn't need revenge. I had already won. News travelled fast. Within weeks, the model family facade crumbled publicly. Richard was quietly pushed out of the community boards he once dominated. Sophia, once hailed as brilliant, became a cautionary tale in every law school forum. Neighbours avoided them, whispers trailed them through grocery aisles, and the family name, once polished and gleaming, was nothing more than a punchline. I watched it unfold without glee, only a calm detachment. Justice had a way of enforcing itself, and this was theirs. One evening during a local interview, I was asked what message I wanted to send. I looked into the camera and said simply, "No one has the right to decide your value. Not your parents, not your siblings, not the world, only you." That line spread almost as quickly as the diner burgers once had. People quoted it, painted it on signs, shared it online. And in that moment, I knew I had finally taken ownership of my story. But the final twist came quietly. Late one night, as I locked up one of the newest Heart and Soul locations, I heard a knock on the glass door. There, standing in the dim glow of the streetlight, was Sophia. Her once pristine clothes were worn, her confidence shattered. She pressed her palms together in a silent plea before mouthing the words, "Please, I need a job." I froze, the keys in my hand, staring at the sister who once smirked and told me to just be practical. The auditorium was packed, the lights dimmed, and the stage glowed with a single red circle on the floor. My heart hammered as the announcer's voice echoed, "Please welcome Madeline Hayes, CEO of Heart and Soul." I walked out into the blinding spotlight, the same girl who had once been mocked as Diner Girl, now standing before thousands in person and millions online. The applause roared, but beneath it I heard my mother's voice, whispering from years ago, "You are destined for more." I took a deep breath and began. 5 years ago, I was told I was only good enough for a diner job. I wore an apron, carried plates, and cried into the sink at night. But here's the truth. Sometimes the world buries you, not knowing you're a seed. And when the soil is heavy, that's when you grow. The words poured out of me, raw and unpolished, but real. I spoke of humiliation turned into drive, of betrayal turned into proof, of how a single, cruel comment online became the fuel for a movement. My story was no longer mine alone. It belonged to every person who had ever been dismissed, every child overshadowed by a sibling, every dreamer told they were not enough. By the time I finished, the auditorium erupted. A standing ovation swept over me, wave after wave of clapping cheers echoing off the high ceiling. But as I bowed my head slightly, my eyes drifted toward the front row. One chair sat empty. It was reserved for family, but no one had come. The applause thundered, yet in my chest there was a quiet ache. Somewhere far away, Richard and Sophia watched the live stream. I learned later that Richard sat hunched in the same living room where he once boasted about Sophia's future. Tears rolled down his face as my words filled the television screen. Sophia sat beside him, her eyes red, her pride stripped bare. They had chased perfection and ended with nothing. I had been their shadow, and now I was the light they couldn't touch. The internet lit up that night. Hashtag DinerGirl Toe CEO trended worldwide. People shared their own stories of rejection, of rising from ashes, of reclaiming their worth. My inbox overflowed with letters from strangers, single mothers, struggling students, people who had been told no too many times. Somehow, my journey had become their mirror. But my triumph didn't end on a stage. I knew success meant nothing if I didn't use it to build something bigger. I poured my resources into a scholarship fund dedicated to those overlooked by their families or communities. The first recipient, a shy girl from a diner in Ohio, wrote me a letter saying, "You gave me back my dream." I cried when I read it because I knew exactly what that meant. The Heart and Soul restaurants became more than eateries. They were sanctuaries. My employees weren't just staff, they were my chosen family. Many of them came from broken homes like mine, and together we created something whole. Every location had a wall called the family table, covered with photographs of employees, customers, and community events. No one was cropped out. No one was erased. On the night of the TED Talk's global release, I stood backstage, the applause still echoing in my ears when I felt a strange presence. Through the glass doors at the far end of the hall, I saw her, Sophia. She stood in the shadows, her posture hesitant, her hands clenched at her sides. Her eyes met mine through the glass, wide and searching. For a heartbeat, I thought she would walk in. I almost wanted her to. Part of me longed for reconciliation, for an embrace that might stitch together the rift of years. But then she faltered, lowering her gaze. She turned, as if to step forward, then froze. The door remained closed. The lights inside flickered, signalling the end of the event. The crowd poured out, their cheers still ringing. When I looked back, Sophia was gone. I stepped into the light, the cameras flashing, reporters calling my name, and I smiled, not a smile of vengeance, but of freedom. The weight of years had lifted, replaced with something purer. For the first time in my life, I wasn't defined by what they denied me. I was defined by what I had built. By the people who now walked beside me, by the life I had chosen. And as the lights bathed me in warmth, I knew I had not just survived, I had transcended.